when I talk about going for the core, that's that, right? Like people for whom beer is not a hugely important part of their life, but just want everything that they drink and eat to be awesome.
Welcome to HenHouse Unruffled, an audio companion to the beers of HenHouse Brewing Company. Each episode, we'll take a deeper dive into each beer's concept, recipe, can art, sensory, and more with your hen host, Fridge.
What up? What's up, Unruffled listeners? It's Fridge, your host for the HenHouse Unruffled podcast, and today I'm sitting back with my co-host Sayre as well as the brewmaster, Mr. Zach Kelly, talking all about summer beers. We're asking the question, what makes the perfect summertime beer? We're running through a host of amazing summertime options here at HenHouse, whether that beer is a sparkling American lager or a soft saison ale. These beers are perfect for a long summer night or a hot summer day. Without further ado, let's get it going. It's summertime. Yeah. I'm very excited. Hey, Sayre, Zach, did you guys know it's summer right now?
I'm well aware.
Yeah, I was just notified a few minutes ago.
Well, I'm glad to be of service. You wouldn't know it right now. It's like super muggy outside, but it is summertime.
You'd know it from this resplendent tan that I'm sporting. It's summertime.
That's true. Yeah, you were living the summer vacation life in Hawaii recently.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, we're closing out on East Coast summer with this muggy weather too, so it feels right at home for me.
It's bringing you back.
It's just sweating while you're sleeping. Feels great. Feels great.
If you were to associate your, summers of Christmas past with a beer, what would that beer be like? What is a summer beer? What makes a summer beer, in your opinion?
Okay, definitely some crispy boys, real pale yellow. I mean, classic nooners. Kind of transition from those into as you're camping, as you get a little darker. It depends. Are we talking about like teenage summers? Are we talking about like current summers? Because
I guess it's like.
At a certain point, you hit some Molson Canadian, and
summertime in my rebellious youth usually involved a lot of brown liquor, but I definitely would get down on the crispy boys. Nothing like being on the river with a classic PBR situation, something like that. These days, I'd probably go for the award-winning Tremor instead.
Yeah, Tremors. But so those like adjunct lagers are, still, even as IPA is ascendant, are like the dominant beer in the world, right?
True.
And are suitable for summer in their dryness. But like, what was the first beer marketed as a summer beer that you guys can remember?
I feel like Great White. For me, I like Las Costas Great White beer was like, oh yeah, perfect for the summertime. Like, go to the beach and drink this wit, beer.
Did that start as a summer seasonal? I think by the time it came into my world, it was a year round. It was like their flagship by the time it came into my world, but I don't really remember.
Maybe it was just the marketing of it, like the shark with the surfboard, like really just screamed like summer cartoon. Caricature,
Yeah, I feel like, besides obviously like Summerfest, there was like that little while of a lot of like session IPAs became a big like spring thing for a couple years there. Be like, here's our April release. Here's a 4% IPA, and then eventually that just kind of became a IPA or a hoppy ale or anything these days. But
yeah, I think Daytime dropped in the summertime for its first run, because I remember drinking it at a birthday party that I threw, and like I put like the Lagunitas dog like with a red beard and a red hair, like in a crappy version of Photoshop from like 10 years ago. And Daytime was certainly a summer beer. And sessions were like going off at that point. Like basically that one went, and then there was one from Drake's all of a sudden. There's mini separation anxiety from Berryessa, and
all day IPA. Just got a station wagon and a kayak on it, doesn't it? It's just straight up like
Yeah. I think that's true. The Lost Coast stuff always had like, I think there's like a surfer with a bite out of his board on the Great White label. But I do think Sam Summer goes back to the 80s, right? Yeah, Sam Adams Summer Ale has been around for a long time. Yeah. And I think that is, I'm struggling here, that is like a neutral ferment, but the ingredients of a wit.
Sure.
I think it's like an ale yeast ferment, but it's got some coriander maybe and some wheat.
So it's like almost like a blonde with spices?
I think. I mean, it's been, I've probably had Sam Summer because it doesn't penetrate the West Coast very much at all. It did for like a couple of years. But I know that existed. Sierra Nevada Summerfest was definitely a big deal.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's got to be, because I can think of the end of the year seasonals from a bunch of breweries from earlier on, and that SKU existed. So they were putting something on that in the summertime in grocery stores. But I wonder if it's because so much of the beer market is actually like just naturally summer appropriate. Those beers don't retain the like seasonal specificity that like a pumpkin beer or Christmas ale or winter ale does in your head.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I'm going back to my like roots here. And one thing I tried to do when I first was creating a beer list was to have an organic beer on at least semi-regularly, and it proved very difficult. But I did get the Eel River Blonde on, and I remember that one really like tasting extra good in the summer. I feel like there was an Nkasi summer beer that...
Definitely.
Yeah, I can't remember what that one was called.
For a brief time, there was Solace from Firestone Walker out here.
Oh, yeah.
But I think you're right, Sayre. Like, a lot of the beers are just, already appropriate for summertime.
Right.
So maybe it's like an opportunity for bigger brands to put forth like their core and just like do a little bit more extra marketing and advertising behind them to like hype them up for the summer. Like, this beer's always available, but why not drink it right now when it's hot,
Yeah.
Well, and at that level of the market, you get like the price drops, the large format, 24-pack, 30-pack kind of deals and stuff.
For sure.
That are definitely targeted at like summer outings.
Yeah.
When I was first like helping out Steve back in the early days of Shady Oak, he turned me on to 805. I'd never like drinking it really before, and that was like what that barrel house ran on back in the day.
Yeah, that beer is basically like a yeast creator for that whole brewery. And they still, like, as far as I remember, as of like when I was there like 2 years ago doing a collaboration, like that's still their biggest beer.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure.
Like by far, yeah.
Did it have another name at first? Am I mistaken?
I think it did.
Was there like a Firestone Blonde at some point or something?
Yeah, and I think like once
And it
they
was just
started
like a
leaning into
rebrand. Yeah.
805, like people like it just exploded.
Yeah. Like maybe the 805 was still on it somehow, but then there was like, okay, now we're just calling it 805.
Well, there was a generation where every brewery had a 3-number beer. What's the Goose Island one? 2 something something.
Yeah.
213, something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's a summer
Those
beer,
ones.
actually, now that I say it. The Golden Road had the 329 Days Years of Sunshine.
Yeah.
It was like everybody had to have their little, it was like the ludicrous area codes shit. But for beer.
So where's our 707?
I mean, it would have to have weed in it.
100%.
Yeah. But I also think that was like the breweries that can claim an area code at this point are few and far between. How many
true.
breweries are there in the 707?
Whew. Last I
Like,
checked, it's
you got to be like this is the
approaching 50?
northeast quadrant of Petaluma beer. Right? Like,
Yeah.
like your territory is not area code wide unless you were in like Wyoming.
It's more like streets.
Yeah, I was gonna say now we got streets.
Yeah.
But I actually think you do see that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's corners. Mm-hmm. Corners, like we're, selling illicit intoxicants.
Well, let me ask this. What is the perfect summer style? Like, what's the quintessential style of the summer?
Well, for me or publicly, or is this me drinking or is this me selling?
How about we'll do a 2-stage fire off then? For you personally, I think I already know what it is. But then for the broader, like this is the one that the people like, the populist choice.
Right. So I think what we're drinking right now, Britpop, is really cool. And it started, I don't think the first time we made this was during the summer. And if it was like a heavy pandemic summer, so it wasn't associated with summer lifestyle.
Right.
But as soon as I tasted it, it had a very like nostalgic for a like, hot outside drinking something really sweet and refreshing thing for me. And I immediately was like, for the rest of this beer's existence, we're putting it out on July 4th because it's also like a colonizing of a British beer style. So it's
There we go.
The anti-colonial July 4th commemoration. And I think that my liking of the beer that might appear dark or have some of the flavors you associate with dark malts, but is still super refreshing, like many in this community, goes back to Death and Taxes.
For sure.
Like, I remember my first sip of Death and Taxes. I remember my first meeting with Brian. I remember just being able to crush a jet black beer faster than I would crush a pale ale. And like that was like my go-to shifty at the first bar that I ran for a number of years. And you're like finished a shift, dead on your feet, when you would think you were reaching for like a Coors Light. It was so satisfying and refreshing to crush this jet black, full flavored beer. And it just was incredible to me, and that is something I have. I mean, I still love Oyster Stout here. Obviously, I love Britpop. So when you can incorporate some of those like deeper, darker flavors in a beer and retain that like essential like this
lightness, this crispness.
Yeah, this is doing the same thing that like water or Gatorade does to me when I'm dehydrated, and it tastes a little like beef jerky. Like that's incredible, you know.
The darker the grist, the more vitamins and minerals, right?
Sure.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Where's Bob?
I defer to you, Zach.
Yeah.
But I do think Gen Pop wise, or like what's fun to sell. I actually do think the little bit of fermentation character in a wit or a saison, if you're able to stay in touch with the traditional examples of those beers and not the like American impulse that this beer is supposed to have fermentation character, so this beer is going to be obnoxious in its fermentation character. I think a beer like Allagash White, I think a beer like Work-Life Balance from us, Saison DuPont, Hoegaarden,
Tank 7.
Yeah. I mean, even Tank 7, the amount of Amarillo character in that beer, the amount of biting fermentation character, which I think makes it delicious, makes it difficult for it to attain that, like, man, I wasn't even paying attention, this glass is empty, that I think is essential for that, like, super hot weather drinking experience.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I think, like, I really love, like, a neutral ferment, like, blonde beer with a little bit of hops, you know, not over the top hoppiness, but, like, a little bit of hops really sealed the deal for me, at least in my early drinking career. And the folks delivered back then. Hops were not in short supply. The beers were hoppy.
Is that like a Steelhead Extra Pale kind of vibe?
Exactly, yeah. Man, miss that beer. Certainly a little bit of like a floral character really makes me think of summertime too. Like the flowers are blooming from spring still. Like out here in Sonoma County, you can, you know, there's summer allergies. Like it's still popping off and stuff. So having that little bit of a floral bite in the beer, I really enjoy. I think that it's quintessential summer to me.
Yeah, I'm still really big on IPAs, man. Like a Blind Pig or something for me. Something I'll drink, you know, like 6.25%, like big
nice
hoppy
West
beer.
Coast, like bold. Bitter.
I like a big bitter, fruit forward hoppy beer, and then some like, if I'm just like trying to chill a little bit, I remember definitely having some good times with like a white ale or just like a 4% golden crispy boy. You know, Keegan Ale's Old Capital is just a 4% golden ale with a little bit of Chinook and a little bit of Saz in it, and that was it. And so we take some shorties of those home every day and do that whole thing. But yeah, I'm still an IPA guy, man. Like, you know, maybe a little Goza or something like that can be nice.
Yeah.
With the IPA thing, I wonder whether the like finishing gravity going up and up and up on that style is driving it out of the kind of beer we're talking about, right?
Yes.
Like when you talk about
absolutely.
Blind Pig or, you know, speaking of beers that we make one for every season, we do Hella Stoked with Altamont, and the summer one is like a pretty bone dry West Coast expression. And then, that's where you can kind of dial the hop character towards something more tropical, but you're not pushing that with the fermentation character that's going to result in a more blousy, flabby beer that can be less refreshing when it's hot out. I wonder if IPA will ever like bifurcate like everyone on the internet says it's going to, and they'll be like, no, West Coast is coming back, you know, like, and you can really be like, you know, what do you want your IPA to taste like given the context right now? Like, you know, is it cold at night, or are you like hanging out and partying? Are you outdoors? Like, is there a whole IPA menu for your different
So it's like
environments?
IPA and IPB sort of thing.
Whoa. IP C through Z, right? But yeah, I think if you're gonna do something that's that bold, I still think you have to go for the dry finish. Though carbonation does that for a lot of people, you know, as long as you can get it refreshing in that way.
I know I was barking up the neutral ferment tree, but just listening to you talk about, you know, the whites and stuff that you enjoyed kind of got me thinking of like Belgian IPAs. I did actually like to crush those a lot back in the day. Particularly thinking of like La Freak from Green Flash or something like that.
Oh, I love that beer.
Yeah, it was like super light, lots of fermentation character on the finish, definitely floral too.
That beer just tastes like 2011.
100%.
Yes, that is a moment.
That's about when I drank it last.
I remember it like was pretty frequently available at the tasting room where I learned to drink beer, because there was a Green Flash fan buying the beer there. And I fell in love with the Imperial IPA. And then I was like, okay, I have to try everything from this brewery. And I was like, what's this? The Freak. That's freaky. Let's go. But yeah, it's super nice. Kind of a little bit of fermentation character on the finish. I could get behind that for summertime.
When we're talking about seasonality, at this brewery, we do make a Hella Stoked for every season. We make a Saison for every season as well.
Right. And in those seasons, there'll be other Saisons that come out too. So it's like almost like 2, right?
Do they all have 2?
It feels like pretty much all of them.
I should know this. Well, spring you have the classic Saison and fresh pots.
Mm-hmm. And then summertime's work-life balance and half day. And then
do we have a second
honest
fall
days
Saison?
Work.
I don't think we do.
What about Aussie Vacation?
Oh, the vacation beers are spring and fall.
Yeah.
Yeah, and those are really hoppy Saisons.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And then wintertime we have the
Rest.
Good Night's Rest and anything else?
I mean, the big sour version of Good Night's Rest Witchcraft, but that's a little different.
Yeah, that's true.
But in the summertime, in the Saison, we do have these delicious 2 beers, which coincidentally have come out in the past few days here at HenHouse Brewing Company.
Absolutely.
What?
One of them is almost like we planned it, right?
Yeah.
One of them's a silver medal winner from the Great American Beer Festival, Work-Life Balance.
Yeah, let's crack that guy open, huh?
Yeah. Sign me up.
This is maybe the first time we've had this since I started.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and our first GABF medal right here, and this is the first time we've brewed it since, I think. And this beer, we should say, did not begin its life as Work-Life Balance.
No, actually, it was part of our inter-company collaboration extravaganza where there was 7 beers released on one day and every label stacked on top of each other to make one giant picture. And that was when I was like, holy crap, Josh, you are incredible. Like I was just talking about this on the Art of Freshness live podcast at the Freshtival. Just like seeing Josh do that, I was just like, holy shit, this guy's special.
Yeah. You're going to appreciate having not been here for that, but it was each department got to propose a recipe, like collab on the brew, and they all had to be like packaged and released on the same day. And Soft was the HR department's beer. Mm-hmm. The HR department at that time consisted of one person who was Anne, Colin, our founder's wife.
Yep.
And that was her beer. And at that time, like we were really leaning into what that French Saison strain does, which is like very dry and pretty sharp. And all of our Saisons, we were hopping the Saison pretty aggressively with Cascade. I think at that point we had done some of the vacation stuff.
Yeah.
Might have done Honest Days Pay, which will come up in a moment here. But we had made, like, our Saisons were pretty abrasive. Like what I was talking about earlier with the, like, American brewing just can't be like, this is something this yeast does that I like, so therefore I need to make as much of it as possible, as opposed to, like, subtly apply it to other things that I like. And so Anne's push to make, like, a soft Saison, that beer was incredible, that original one. And both how long that beer stayed tasting good and the fact that Work-Life Balance won a GABF medal at like 4 months old.
Yeah.
Really spoke to like the durability of those flavors when they're not, hop derived or, something that needs to be jumping out of the glass. I remember pouring Soft in the second batch of red overalls, this super fancy Outstanding in the Field dinner, which was like, had all these expensive wine pairings and stuff, and people just coming back to our booth like while the meal was going on, just like, can I have a little more of that? Like that beer was such a success, and I'm so glad it's gotten into the permanent rotation.
It really was like subtle for subtlety's sake. I remember being like, wow, this is just a really delicious, clean Saison. Let's go. We would describe it as like our love letter to Saison DuPont back in my day. But it's almost like we do eccentric beers with like a bit of restraint. But when we can really lean into like something that's supposed to be soft and subtle, it's when we really shine.
I mean, I think we make some pretty good obnoxious beers.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah, just the threshold for obnoxiousness keeps getting pushed further and further out.
Obnoxious in concept and in naming structure.
Absolutely. Yes. You're welcome. But yeah, so what's the impression of Work-Life Balance 2022?
Incredible. I took a photo of this beer up against some like freshly blooming flowers, and for me it's really hitting the things that I just talked about. Like it's a lighter beer, it's crispy, it does have floral character and a little bit of fermentation character.
I think more than a little on the phenolic side. Like that finish is spicy.
Yeah, I mean this is definitely like a fermentation driven flavor. I mean, this is also what I really like about the French Saison yeast too. Like I like how bone dry it gets, but still being like very effervescent, you know? Yeah, this beer's pretty. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Soft originally used a different yeast strain, right?
DuPont.
Yeah, DuPont.
Which is just historically a nightmare in American breweries, given fermenter shapes and needing to flip tanks. It has, what's the name of the stage? It has a dormant stage. Mm-hmm. Yeah, which American brewing is all like, but it stopped. We're gonna put it in a can.
Got to keep
the
chain moving.
Yeah. I remember at Craftsman, they would do their DuPont Saisons in a large oak vessel with a little space heater underneath. Mm-hmm. And he would just like moderate, because it's, Pasadena is usually pretty hot, but if he wanted to ferment one that was a little cool, he'd just turn on the space heater and like just wait. He'd be like, the DuPont yeast will like, you think it's done? It's not. And then it's like, after X amount of days of doing nothing, it's just like, oh shit, this thing just dropped another half a degree Play-Doh and now it's ready to package.
Yeah, my experience with the French Saison yeast is, that it'll, you can just kind of watch it and it's just like never quite done until there's like nothing left for it to eat, basically. Like it'll keep going down a half Play-Doh or 0.1 or 0.01. Like it'll just and even if you're just looking at like your pressure gauge, it just starts creeping up a little bit every day. It's just like still.
Are you saying that's
there.
About this French strain or DuPont?
French strain.
Oh,
this
really?
French strain, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. I think like sometimes like these French strains, you really do them a long time because they're diastatic positive, so you can get down to like no fermentable sugar left. Like they will just keep on chugging for as long as they can.
What does diastatic positive mean?
So diastaticus is a really bad word in the wine world and often a bad word in the brewing world, but it is a type of strain of yeast that will continue to break down the simple sugars that are usually not fermentable, just very, very slowly. And so it'll continue to ferment, and that's how you end up with bottle bombs, basically. But, you can also like kind of integrate it into like a Saison or something for bottle conditioning. Mm-hmm. If you have like the time and a nice warehouse, you can kind of like allow a lot of these things to finish off at, half a Play-Doh or whatever, and just kind of leave the yeast in it, and you can bottle condition it for 6 months or something and end up having like a really pretty naturally fermented, like extremely dry beer.
We should start doing that.
We should.
All right.
Yes.
Cool.
Somebody should have that idea.
Awesome. So what about this beer's summer particularity?
Yeah, as I was saying, like it's really checking off my checklist. I envision a summer beer as being something that is this light in color. It's like a pale golden, almost like slightly more like wet straw or something like that. And definitely hitting my floral note that I love, and just that extra bit of phenolic quality on the end, as you two were reaffirming. So it's hitting everything that I'd ask in a summer beer.
Yeah, I don't know. Any time that I've got like, I guess I kind of like this in all beers, but like a really dry beer that makes me just kind of keep sipping tiny sips. Mm-hmm. There's a big flavor to it, like that. As we were keep waxing philosophical about these, phenolic flavors and like big yeast derived flavors, but that part where it almost cleans your own palate. It makes you take lots and lots of tiny sips, and that's conducive to not just chugging down like 4% beers too.
Yeah,
it's kind of that other side of the summer drinking for me.
Yeah. Whether you're like sitting by the river or floating down it.
Yes.
So for me, you described it perfectly, but I do think the balance of the fermentation character is so to the phenolic and like there's not a ton of fruitiness that for me, this is just culinary beer. Like I just want this in a restaurant 12 months out of the year, and it like will work with it's like the anniversary Saison we made, like that beer came out in February. Not a problem, right?
Yeah.
And that beer is going to be awesome in December just because it works with such a wide range of food, and the dry finish is necessary for that. But the whole phenolic palette is like an herb and spice cabinet, And I love that. Whereas I think when we talk about wits, Hefeweizens, this next beer we're going to talk about, the fruit side of its fermentation character, or sometimes fruit's just added, that situates me more in like I'm outside in the sunshine.
For sure.
When you think about the cocktails you drink in the summer.
Yeah, and
fruit.
Pairs with a summer spread. Like you could have a cheese board that would rock with this, or maybe a nice like lamb dinner or something too.
There's almost no food I think would not be awesome with this. Like this is like there's a reason that the cuisine de beer world developed the most in Belgium. Like they really do make beers for a broad palette of foods, and like in a way that like even Germany doesn't really. Like German beer goes great with food, but it's not as nuanced and precise in the way that you'd pair it. You know.
Well said. Well, what's next on the agenda here? We got a half day.
Half day, sort of FKA, honest day's pay. This thing is brilliantly clear this year.
I think it was pretty dang clear and golden last year, too, from what I remember.
So we are speaking of half day, our tart saison, which made its return. Is this year 2 or 3 of half day?
This is the second time it's been out. And it's got a very, I think, like, deliciously over-the-top citrus character. Like, it is lemon, lime, aid, had a baby with saison. Very, very tart.
Yeah, this, like, you know, almost tastes like you put an ice cube in it.
Yeah.
You know, like it really, to me, hits like the way Britpop hits like summer dark cola, this hits like, you know, the Sprite flavor profile.
100%.
Yeah.
You know how you've had like a big 2-liter Sprite when you were a kid, you poured it into a glass and you go to smell it and you just like get the like spiciness in your nose. I know that's not the right term, but
when you go to smell your Sprite.
You were a sommelier as a baby.
Oh, I mean, I'd see my mom like swirling her red wine, and I just had to get in on it, you know, with my Sprite or
Cherry Pepsi, 1997 first half.
Just getting notes of Lyman, Mom.
It's like, give me a Roy Rogers. It has been one hell of a day, bartender.
So for me, this is more like dead on summer beer. Like if it wasn't hot outside, this would feel inappropriate. Like, and you got the label of the, you know, the hen kayaking down the river. That feels dead on for me. I had really hoped we were going to have this at the festival. We just missed it by like a few days.
Yeah.
And then the festival didn't end up being as brutally hot as it could have been.
This is a great hot weather beer.
Yeah. The primary thing this beer is refreshing.
Yeah. I'd make sure you have your, you know, Tums on deck. If you're sensitive to acidity, maybe don't eat a big like marinara-based dish right before you drink this, because the acid is there. But very, very delightful.
We need a slushy machine for this beer.
Ooh, now you're talking. Yeah, I'd be super into that.
Make an alcoholic otter pop out of this beer.
Yeah, sign me up.
Yeah, this is a very camping, and you finished breakfast, you kind of walk the dog, it's like 10:45, and you're like, I think I'm gonna have a little beer.
Time for my first beer of the day.
Yeah, a nice morning spritzer.
Gotta get my pH right now.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. Well, there's the tart beers and champagne and mimosas definitely have a
Definitely.
crossover there.
I wonder what this beer would be like in a shandy as well. Like, I think that would be freaking delicious.
You'd have to whatever you were adding would be sugary.
It'd be very
it
sugary.
Wouldn't be lemonade. It'd be like Sprite.
Yeah. Mix it with Sprite or even like simple syrup and just like filtered water, shake it all up, you know?
Yeah.
But I used to make a crap load of shandies when I worked at a certain place, and we'd have, in the summertime, tons of people ride up on their bikes and just be like, oh, I really need something, like, can you mix lemonade and beer together? Like, I know it's weird. I'm like, oh, it's not weird. I do it all the time. You know?
Well, the original Bavarian name for that is Radler, which means bicyclist.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so that is where that culture comes from. It's like, I can't really be getting hammered. I got, like, you know, taking this thing down an Alp later. And
is there a name? I mean, I know like the snake bite, that's like with actual alcoholic cider, right?
Yeah.
But is there a name for like apple juice mixed with beer? Because I've heard of people ask for that before,
not to my knowledge.
but I've never like heard an official name.
I mean, all of that would fall under the Radler umbrella as it is now applied. I think like typically, that's like soda or lemonade for bicyclists, and it's like a 2.5%. You dilute to like a very low alcohol.
Yeah.
And I could see this beer having some serious success at the Fairfax pub if we were
Definitely.
able to do something like that around it, you know? Just like maybe it's a slushy machine, maybe it's a bartender concoction.
Yeah.
But like, oh, you're stopping in on your bike, like let's get you refreshed and get you back on your way, and you're not going to be too sloshed to operate your at that location multi-$1,000 bicycle.
Yeah, maybe instead of simple syrup, you do some like raspberry syrup or something in there.
See some like crushed ice or something in there. Nice little
Oh yeah.
little tiny straw.
Yeah, little metal straw, like a mule. This actually does have a lot of the mule flavor. We could do a ginger version of this. Maybe it's ginger ale that needs to go in this.
Ooh.
I think I might have just cracked it because that
Think
comes
you might
to
have
that.
just cracked it. I would definitely drink the hell out of
Garnished
that.
with a little mint. You got a little mule. It's the half mule. Mule
the-
day?
Yeah.
Mule day. Day mule.
Yeah, is it the Fairfax mule or the Marin mule maybe?
River mule.
River Mule.
River Mule.
River Mule.
Call it the River Otter.
Like River Mule sounds like we're again in an illicit trafficking.
Let me inspect those floaties, gentlemen. What do you got in that hen
Password
floaty?
is River Mule.
But I do think that when I'm saying how this to me is like very seasonally appropriate, that whole category of frozen things or alcoholic drinks, like I'm not going to order in November.
Right.
You know, I'm not like bellying up to the bar like, you know, let me get a Kentucky Mule in nighttime in November, but like hot outside, crushed ice, all that stuff, you know.
Still got sunlight at 8 p.m. Like, let's do it.
Yeah, porch drinks. I find that like really intense acidity that strikes you when you first sip it goes away pretty quickly as you keep going back.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's like a jarring first sip, but that's about it.
Like eating a handful of lemon heads, that first one.
Yeah, and the aroma doesn't quite tell you what you're going to get on that first, like, acidic
Unless...
sip. I think it's, like, nice and, like, lemony and limey, and it, like, definitely, like, that kind of, you know, those shandy or Rattler characters, but then it definitely hits a little sharper then.
I was going to say that
than you
unless
expect.
you were smelling your Sprite, like I was at age 6.
I remember like the only sense memory I have of anything like that is like being in a hurry to drink soda after it's poured, and then the prickle gets you in your nose.
Yeah. It would hit me
That's
right
the
in the
carbonation.
eyes, too.
You just put your whole face in the glass.
We didn't have cups. We just used big bowls.
All right, so Half Day I think hits the public today.
Yeah, it's
Being
out
Tuesday.
today.
Yeah, here in the tasting rooms. And hopefully we get a real hot weekend this next weekend. Then I think people will be thrilled that we have this. And now I'm really interested in pitching Fairfax on some kind of Radler program.
I think that would be incredible. Sign me up. I'll be there.
Who does Radlers? There's a place in Oakland that like is a Radler brewery.
Really?
Yeah, they package Radlers. I think they're an account, so you'll have to Google people. Other than that, yeah, it seems like it should be, particularly for as bicycle oriented as that community is. I think we could do some fun Radler stuff in the warm weather.
Yeah. And those of us who drive up on their cars can, be like, walking over here was that was a little bit of exercise, so give me a Radler.
Yeah.
Rad me. Mule me. Rad Mule.
Rad
Mule.
Okay.
The Rad Mule.
There it is.
Keep throwing it there. Yeah.
Let's talk about our Prince beer.
As this one might have made Half Day might have made a really good Radler or Shandy. This beer I could see rocking the Michelada world.
Yeah.
Super light, super crushable. Be the perfect beer to mix in with a bunch of crazy stuff.
To me, this beer wants the like Kir Royale treatment. You need to turn this thing purple with some syrup. Stat.
100%.
Yeah. This is the most brilliantly clear, lowest ASRM thing we've ever made.
This beer is absolutely amazing. It's one of your favorite beers, if not your favorite beer that we make. Is that right, Sayre?
Conceptually, it is my favorite thing we make, for sure. What's funny is like I am definitely like not even close to the number one Prince fan in this organization. Josh Staples is definitely holding that title, but that's a huge part of it. But also, like I've said it a bunch of times on this podcast, like I am here for small companies trying to take the core from the massive multinational beer conglomerates. And so a beer like this, a true to type light lager, I mean, there's some Laurel hops in there, which are not, in any classic light lager, but like basically with that exception, like you could love Asahi, you could love Sapporo, you could love Coors Light or Bud Light, and like you could love this thing. And and to me, it is not so different from those that it is something else. It is just a better version of those, and I think that's like extremely difficult to achieve. And it hitting on Prince's birthday, June 7th, and lasting through the next couple of months is the right season for it. Like, it's when it starts to really get hot here, when you're doing a lot of your drinking outside, festival season. My girlfriend just took a bunch of these to the river last weekend. And, it's like a very culinary crowd, but not a beer crowd, and they were just like crushing them. In a way that they wouldn't with most anything else that we make, right? Like, not that they wouldn't be like, it's objectively cool or delicious or, extraordinary, but they're just like, they drink cocktails and sparkling wine, And I love that. When I talk about going for the core, that's that, right? Mm-hmm. Like people for whom beer is not a hugely important part of their life, but just want everything that they drink and eat to be awesome.
This beer certainly meets the mark. I know at the Face to Face Fest, the good one, we crushed a half barrel of this. People were absolutely drinking it up in 93-degree weather heat.
Yeah, the texture, too, is, like, essential. It still has... It's not watery, which is, like, very, very tricky to avoid with something that is this bereft of most anything, of body and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's so simple, but it's beautiful because it's simple. And I really love the label on this one. It's one of my all-time favorite labels.
Parking your car sideways. What does it say about you?
Parking your car sideways. What's that say about you?
Oh, see, now,
Yeah.
yeah. This is what I feel like when you make all your
Yeah.
fucking D&D references.
I'm lost. I don't know.
Little red Corvette.
Okay, yeah, here we go.
Tell
All
by
right.
the way you
Raspberry
parked your car
Beret,
sideways that it wouldn't
yeah.
last.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
what parking your car sideways says about you.
Got him.
Got him.
What else we got? We got gold is the new purple. We got the 6.5 minutes of cowbell. Nice.
I do like the Sapporo is the part that sung to me. Actually, you talking about Sapporo and sparkling wine, as those are two of my favorite. I do not want to become a wine person, but I do enjoy sparkling wine, and I do like cheap beer. And Sapporo is definitely up there. This stuff kind of has like that. It is very highly carbonated, so it's got that kind of more sparkling, spritzy or effervescence to it, but it does have more of like a backbone than American light lager generally does. So it's
Well, and then
very-
the nice thing about the Laurel, if you are starting to dig like some of the more affordable sparkling wines like Prosecco and Cava, there is like a stone fruit ester that can come out of some of those things.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not obnoxious the way it would be in certain beers, but it's there. And I think the way in the background on this with the Laurel, you can talk me in to not just floral. You know, it's like that sweet floral that you find in tropical flowers. It's very background in there, but it is in there. And yeah, to me, that does deliver on the sparkling wine flavor profile. And then what I love about Asahi, Kirin, Sapporo, Beer Lao, like all of these just like bone dry rice beers, super high carb, and they're a little bit on the sweet side of balanced, and then you just devour crazy spicy food with them.
yeah.
And it is like, you know, most of the beer we get from those places is in dog shit condition. Like it is like so old, it's been warm stored forever. There's not a whole lot to really make the beer grotesque after that. But when you run into one of those in decent condition and you're like, you know, eating like a papaya salad or something and your head's sweating, it is like one of those like, this is exactly like you would be such a clown trying to drink wine or spirits with that meal. Like this is a meal for a like grain derived sparkling beverage that I can drink like 100 of while I sweat.
A quaffable quencher.
Exactly. And also, you know, to bring it back to the summer thing, those cuisines come from places, they're equatorial cuisines. They come from places where it's fucking hot. And like eating spicy food actually provides some relief, you know?
From the temperature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I was just thinking though too. Like I usually try to get it on draft when I can when I see Sapporo or Asahi, just because I do like it better.
Is
from the
Asahi
keg.
still sending over those weird?
I never had it on draft in anywhere that I like ran the program.
Well, but they do. They have like a pasteurized, like their version of the Stella, like proprietary thing, and it's like presents the beer pours very differently,
Right.
But it's like a box you have to get from them.
Oh yeah. I haven't seen one, but I know what you're
Then,
talking about.
I
So, like,
remember.
the K kegs or something.
To be honest, this was a moment where they were showing up in a lot of Asian restaurants, and then I haven't seen them in a while.
Also, whenever I am going for one of those like really light rice beers, usually I'm eating either like Korean barbecue or some like really spicy sushi. And I 100% agree with what you were saying there, Sayre. Like this Glamorous Life has been with me at home with really spicy sushi, and
Yeah.
it was freaking amazing.
Yeah.
So
what we need to do is start packing this in 64-ounce plastic bottles like Hite. We talk about Korean barbecue. That shit is straight up in the Sprite bottle, like the 2-liter bottle with the twist cap. Like I don't even know how that's like pressure safe. But, like, that stuff will and you need all 64 ounces of it. You know, I do like that. Like
you need to drink 64 ounces of liquor.
It's just like drinking one beer 2000.
exactly, like, probably less, honestly. Like, just based on concentrations, the amount of water you ingest in 64 ounces of height is.
I know you were saying like earlier, like Death and Taxes is like super crushable in the summertime, you know.
Relatively.
Relatively,
Like, we're
yeah.
now into the real
Like this is the
legitimately
super
crushable,
duper crushable. But you throw a beer like Beer 2000 on nitro, And that is just as crushable in the summer heat at nighttime, in my opinion.
That's the worst opinion you've espoused on this podcast.
I very much disagree with what you just said.
I used to go to 250 Tuesday every single week at Springer's and just drink as many Nitro Old Rasputins as they would let me have for $2.50. And it was amazing.
I think you're espousing a testament to what a good beer that is, but 400 calories at 1.5 vols of CO2.
It's probably more than 400 too. Like a Pliny is 450 calories. It's probably like 600 or 700 calories. You're in love with the fact that it was $2.50.
True. But boy, did that go down easy. It was slicker than the other beers that weren't on Nitro.
Hey, the only thing that tastes better than beer is free beer.
Yeah.
That's true.
Well, no, but also that is an argument for requisite bitterness in big stouts, which we are
Right.
losing on the pastry stout thing, which is not at all the subject of this podcast. But
Right.
when you go to a beer like Death and Taxes, which had bitterness from the roast, bitterness from the hops, Old Rasputin, I want to say, and it's like heyday was like 70 to 90 BUs. Like it was very aggressively hopped. There was a savory side to those beers, even though they were malted out like crazy. And then the market has said like, no, when I want sweetness, I want sweetness. And there's like an anti-refreshing category.
Now you just locked us into this conversation. We're just going to fight those big stouts for the summer. Trap sprung.
It just depends on what kind of summer you want to have, you know?
I mean, that's where you got to get the root beer float going. You know?
Yeah. Vanilla ice
There
cream.
we go.
Yeah.
Turn it
Yeah.
into dessert. Now we've come back around.
Oh, yeah. Especially one that's been chilling in a glass, losing a bit of that carbonation.
So it's just syrup. You've just applied syrup to your vanilla ice cream, and now you're drinking it.
100%.
Yep.
Yeah, took that nitrogen. You made your syrup thicker.
I can't remember what batch of Recurring Nightmare it was, but it was like Recurring Nightmare, maybe the second time it came out, we were just like, holy crap, that was vanilla ice cream. It was so good. Yeah. But anyway, summer isn't about those big, dark beers.
I mean, ice cream.
Well, ice
does
cream.
great in summer.
Yeah, it's true.
Despite what Fridge may have you know.
I have the spirit of Christmas in me 365 days a year. And during Christmas, I always drink an Imperial Stout. So,
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
but this has been the summer beers episode.
Yeah, come down here and get you some work-life balance, some half-day, some glamorous life while it lasts, some Britpop while it lasts. We
Hella Stoked, summer
Yeah.
edition.
Hella Stoked Summer Edition. We got beers for your summer barbecuing, rivering,
Yeah.
whatever y'all do in this
And
summer.
honestly, like you were saying, anniversary saison, if there's still bottles of that, grab some of that. Killer any time of the year.
Yeah, that's just evergreen
Yeah.
advice. That's like a beer that I would not be ashamed to show like the people behind Westmalle.
Yeah. Or, keep it simple. One of our year-rounds, Best Life or
Yeah.
even Oyster Stout. Killer in the summertime.
It is.
Yeah.
I had one at the Pengrove Parade at 11 a.m. on Sunday.
Man, we were slaying it at the Nevada Art and Wine Festival with Oyster. People were just drinking it up. So,
Seemed like an oyster crowd.
yeah, it was like 85 degrees or something. People were just like, yeah, let me get some of that oyster. Let's
If you're
go.
attending the Art and Garden Festival in the past tense for when this podcast comes out, but Oyster Stout will be one of the 4 beers we're pouring at Petaluma Art and Garden this coming weekend.
I love it. Summer is fun, and so are the beers. Cheers.
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 And now, Sensory First.
Welcome to Sensory First, where we are taking a deeper dive under the hood of the beers of the HenHouse Brewing Company. I am Bob from the marketing department, here with the ever fabulous,
Brewmaster Zach Kelly.
and we are talking about Brit Pop, our beautiful cola-inspired mild ale brewed in collaboration with the fabulous Ducks over at Drake's Brewing. Also, another beautiful Blanca Molina label. She does really good work. And this beer is a lot of fun. Did you try any of the original batch?
I have not
Last
had
year.
the original batch. So this is a whole new experience for me, and it's a surprising, fun experience. It was definitely an unexpected beer.
Yeah, I didn't expect to like the original Britpop, but did. And I actually think that I like this one better. I think this one presents a little bit less sweet up front, maybe a little bit less vanilla character. I think with the 2021 batch, it was presenting a lot of vanilla on the nose, and then there was like a sweetness expectation that I had that the beer kind of didn't deliver on because it's beer and not soda pop. And that was great, and it made for a drinkable beer, but a little part of me was always like, where's all the high fructose corn syrup that my nose is telling me is coming? I think this one's a little bit more balanced, and it is sessionable AF. Are you a fan of milds?
I am now. I've had a few milds. They're kind of hit or miss for me. Like English ales are not my favorite, my cup of tea.
Sure.
As maybe they would say there.
Yeah, that's exactly how they would say it, I think.
Yeah, why not? But this beer's like 3.8%. It's like super, super easy to drink.
Yep.
The Maris Otter is always a boon to any beer, really. I think just that slightly more flavorful, like bigger mouthfeel malt.
Right.
Definitely lends like a really great backbone, and probably one of my favorite parts when I drink English style ales is the malt character over any sort of like the noble hops or anything.
Totally.
Of which we don't really have many of in here. We have a tiny bit of CTZ just as like a bittering addition.
Yeah, a little splash for balance.
And you don't need much on such a low ABV beer. And then the real highlight is this house-made cola syrup.
Right. Which under pandemic conditions, Colin and former Drake's head brewer, current Bricks Factory chief John Galooly, whipped that up in the Palace because we couldn't have anybody breathing in our brewery because who knows where that would have left us. So we did that safely here. But this time, John stayed home. He's not with Drake's anymore, and we whipped up this syrup on our own.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. What kind of vessel was that done in?
This was just on like a standard burner.
Cool.
Just made it outside, old fashioned, almost all homebrew style.
Yeah, it was a very homebrew thing that John and Colin did the first time, and I really like this. It's neat to whip up a thing that you're adding to the beer. You didn't just add the cardamom and anise and other stuff. Yeah, it was like a homebrew kind of thing, and it plays well with all the citrus peel that we've added.
Yeah, lime peel, orange peel. It's really deceptive. It drinks way more like a soda, almost like not like gross like a malted Goya, but you get that sort of not like super syrupy like that, but a little reminiscent of that kind of like more traditional soda.
Yeah.
Very sugared Coke and not high fructose corn syrup Coke forward.
Right. And yeah, we got nutmeg, star anise, coriander, cinnamon, and vanilla. And I just really think this batch is a little bit more well restrained, or maybe I'm less surprised by it. So it's not sticking out to me as much as it did the first time we brewed it. But this batch is totally the one for me. We do always joke about, this current batch. If you had this batch, my God, this is the best batch ever. But yeah, no, the last one was a really cool experiment that I think turned out really well. And now this is starting to taste like something we can produce on the regular.
Yeah, I think the biggest surprise to me is that coming into the company, I thought Britpop was a tribute to a certain style of music and not a British soda. So knowing that, you now know what to expect when you drink the beer.
It works on a lot of levels. Anyway, here's Wonderwall. Cheers.
Cheers.
I am Bob from the marketing department here with
Brewmaster Zach Kelly
and
Director of Quality Mike Guilford.
Doubleheader today. This is exciting because we are drinking Glamorous Life. Dig, if you will, this lager. This is the lightest thing that we have ever made. I'm going to argue this is the lightest thing we probably will ever make until that seltzer comes along. There's not a lot of space here between this and water. This is an American light lager. They are built to be like this. Gentle, light. And I think we're talking SRM 1 here.
Perhaps.
Wow.
Measure it, yeah. At 35% rice, and the rest is pills. And it's only, 7.5 Play-Doh.
Yeah.
It's as pale as you can get it.
Yeah. It's super dry. I wouldn't say the flavor's it's not missing. It's not absent. It isn't flavorless. It's just a light lager. I personally do not drink a lot of these. And this is kind of making me wonder why. It's so nice. It's just kind of barely there. We talked about purpling this beer up again, but no, it is still a beer-colored beer. Ain't nothing wrong with that. And we're celebrating Prince and the ubiquity of lagers. We're attaching them to celebrity because just like celebrities, lagers are everywhere. This is most of the beer that most people drink in most places in the world. And now we're at a point in craft beer history where breweries like us make excellent light lagers. So 35% rice, how far can you push it before you end up with sake? I don't know, 45%, 55%? Is there a limit?
I mean, honestly, it probably just depends on what your brew house can handle.
Right.
I think as long as there's some portion of barley in there, it doesn't really much matter.
Yeah.
You might need some enzymes to help with things.
Right.
But that's what brewing science is for.
Yeah.
To make things into things.
Right.
Well, I think as far as like the sake thing, there would be the different yeasts, and then also just even the way
Sure.
you process the rice.
Absolutely. The koji mold, digesting it for you, that whole
Yeah.
thing. Rice lacking in diastatic power.
Yeah, and what can you tell us about the gelatinization of this jasmine rice, Mike, since we have you here, our director of quality here?
I believe it comes like puffed pre-gelatinized, right?
Yeah, so this rice is it's puffed jasmine rice. So when you puff it, it's almost like a pressure cooker. Like you taking it up temperature, it kind of expands all those starch granules, and allows access and allows them to be solubilized. So once they're puffed up, it's pretty easy to send it through the mill, and then it's free reign on all those barley enzymes to help convert all that is in there. And when we first brewed this beer, we tried, I do believe, 4 or 5 different variety of rice that you could actually find out there. And this jasmine rice, for sure, like blew everything else out of the water. Like it was delicate and actually has like a floral like component to it.
Right.
Like it is a beautiful rice.
That's awesome.
I didn't realize how many different rices were available to us. And this one for sure like was in a light lager, like it's a step above. Kind of why I wanted to match like Laurel, which I think is a beautifully like floral hop and like really delicate. And I thought those two kind of like played really well together. And that was kind of like the decision on why we went the Laurel hop.
Yeah.
Would you say that the Laurel is floral?
It's a floral Laurel.
Right? That's got to be a beer already. I really like Laurel. It was like Laurel popping up in our Kolsch's and like these lighter bodied beers. We seem to use it more in lagery type stuff. And it's a nice hop. It's also interesting to me that the jasmine's aroma makes it through the puffing process. Like that doesn't like destroy it. I don't know that much about aroma molecules or what goes on in a rice puffing machine, but it just seems like that would kick the crap out of whatever you're trying to do.
Might go a little beyond my brewing science at this point in time. I'm sure I studied that at some point, but it's much like anything. When you're doing anything under pressure, it means the temperature actually goes way down.
Right.
So you can do a lot of things at much lower temperatures that are at higher pressures.
Fascinating.
So you can help preserve a lot of stuff. And you could boil things under pressure at a much lower temperature, so you destroy less of these, like aromatic compounds, and it's quick too. So. These big puffin machines, probably help preserve a lot of that aroma.
This is more than I thought I'd learn about rice as we were recording this. Dude, you're a font of knowledge. I love it. This beer, so delicate, so easy drinking. We talked about the Laurel. We talked about the lightness. Anything else you want to add?
Last little thing,
please.
The Ericlea malt.
Yeah,
I believe that Pils malt. So it is a Bavarian malt.
Yeah,
it was developed in the 70s.
Wow,
and a lot of that was used. That barley was basically great for that region.
Okay.
And so that's why it had a very small like footprint. It was like this barley grows very well here.
Right.
And so that's why it didn't really get, it didn't spread across the world. It's like, oh, we'll make this malt everywhere. So it's kind of a very unique German malt that came out not too long ago. So it was available to us, just the past few years. So.
Yeah.
And
it's popped up in a bunch of recipes.
Yeah. So it's been a fun addition to the many malts that are available to us.
Yeah, this is fabulous.
Yeah, and I think something else just to note on this, we're almost completely devoid of residual sugar in this beer. So no real sweet backbone to it. We decided to have a little fun and really highly carbonate it. So it makes it really dance on your tongue. It's really bright and just easy to drink beer. Almost crystal clear, just as pale as you can possibly be to fight any of the macro industrial light lagers that we can find out there. And just as a side note, I think something that's really fun and something that I've learned and told a lot of people in the craft beer industry or the people looking inside is anytime somebody tries one of your beers and, makes some sort of slight at a Budweiser or a Coors Light, just letting them know how much more difficult it is to make one of those than make one of ours.
Absolutely.
This is a recipe that was, again, developed very heavily by Mike, even before my time, and it is a real testament to the knowledge and beer making skills of some of the people that came before me.
Well, thank you, Zach.
Yeah. Shout out to Mike and the team. And yes, that is such an important thing to point out. Like, these are the hardest beers to make. Any fault will come singing right through. There is nowhere to hide, nowhere to run. And I've got just a little bit left in my glass. If I shake it around just right, I can kind of get all the color to refract away, and it turns totally translucent, which is also thrilling. But yeah, the folks at Budweiser, no shame. We had a great tour of their facility once here in Fairfield, but the way they make all of those incredibly light lagers taste the same, being brewed in time zones with different water tables. Whoa.
Yeah, all around the world, different barley from different places in the world, different water.
Yep.
It is pretty impressive what they can do and the sensory science that they have behind there, and yeah.
Right.
It's always remarkable.
Do y'all know how hard it is to do what we do? Yeah. Wow. Light lagers.
Yeah, American light lagers.
Run the world.
Cheers.
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 HenHouse Unruffled was created by Anna Scott. We record at HenHouse Brewing Company's Palace of Barrels in Petaluma, California. Our producer is Brian Henderson, and our associate producers are Josh Staples and Fridge. The music you've been listening to was written and performed by our San Francisco account rep McLean from his album Speechless and Speechless 2, which you can find on Apple Music, Spotify, Tidal, and anywhere one finds dope music. If you have a question or comment about this or any episode of HenHouse Unruffled, please let us know by calling 707-347-9425 to leave a message. You can also send an email to podcast@henhousebrewing.com. For more information, visit www.henhousebrewing.com or stop by one of our Bay Area tasting rooms. The voice you've been listening to is Imani Russell Black. Please listen and drink responsibly.